All right, guys, stuff you're seeing here, I originally was going to lump into a new exercise video coming up here for March, but then I figured it probably deserves its own video because it is so unique. Now, given the title, you probably see where this is going, but I'm actually going to be showing you kind of two different total gym positions, both of which are pretty similar, but they involve more or less dropping the total gym down to a very low setting and showing you how you can still get a decent use out of this machine in a horizontal plane. Of course, the total gym is meant to be worked on an incline plane. That's where you get most of its intensity and its functionality from. But bear in mind, there is a whole nother, technically a whole nother industry or form of training that is, you could say, is sliding bench training that operates predominantly in the horizontal plane. And if you guys kind of know where I'm going with this, I'm talking about Pilates. And what I'm basically doing here in this video is showing you guys a kind of a poor man's modification of taking your total gym and turning it into a Pilates Reformer, which again operates predominantly in the same kind of function. We have resistance on one end and you can kind of slide back and forth on this horizontal plane. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you guys looks pretty simple. I just never really kind of messed around with it, but it is a very unique experience. I just dropped the machine down to a very low setting and then clipped some resistance bands kind of on the side, on both sides of the machine. Definitely, as with everything here, guys, try this at your own risk, especially even attaching resistance bands here. Now, believe it or not, this actually feels really good, and it's kind of a different experience on a variety of different stress that it kind of places upon your muscles. And we'll get into this even in the second position, but this low setting might be good for people that want to just kind of try things lower to the ground and maybe get kind of nervous doing things kind of higher up on the glide board. Notice I did add some chains for some extra extension. It's not necessary, and sometimes you might want to take that extension off. But if you haven't seen that video about extension or chains, I can link that down below as well. Since we're using that resistance band tension for that increased intensity, the cables and the exercises are going to give off that variable resistance as you go through that range of motion, similar to what you'd experience using resistance bands. But since it's lower to the ground, this might be good or just something different for people who want to kind of try their hands at kind of different positions that might be a little more higher risk for them on being more of a higher incline or being higher off the ground. It kind of mixes up the tension, also some of that line of action and stress to the muscles and these different positions. Even though it seems very similar, I was getting a lot of different kind of tensions and feel kind of working at this kind of low setting with this resistance. Again, you guys are seeing me do some stuff that is definitely high risk position standing on the machine, but feels much more safer as I'm not that high off the ground. Now, this didn't happen to me as I was doing this. It doesn't really happen to me on my Total Gym Fit, but on my Apex models, those models sometimes I notice can have sometimes a tendency to kind of want to slide laterally off the rails, especially if you're using something like bands. So if you were going to try and do this, I would definitely, at least if I was going to do it, I would make sure I have even band tension going on both sides of the glide board. So that's just something that you got to be mindful about, is that the rails could kind of slip laterally. Now, the next thing that kind of popped in my head, which has actually crossed my mind before, I just never tried it, was kind of what happens if I raise the bottom part of the machine. Now, it's popped in my head before, but I'm like, what's the point of even doing that? But now I can kind of see some value if I got some resistance here. I used my trusty cinder blocks that we made a whole video. I just showed you guys on that earlier, and I raised it out to the bottom end. It worked out perfectly. Again, probably not the best thing, and therefore probably maybe and definitely very much likely an unnecessary risk for you guys to even try yourselves. But what I'm really doing here is creating a poor man's GTS or Encompass, where with those models, you can take the glide board and go totally horizontal, which is pretty cool. But I still think, most of the, as I said in the start of the video, most of the benefits of using this machine are going to be using that incline plane. Now, definitely this horizontal position might be completely worthless for you guys to really try and unnecessary. But that first position just kind of showcases, again, even in a very low setting where you're almost pretty much horizontal, or you're definitely not at a high incline, with some extra resistance on the resistance bands, actually can do some cool creative things on there, especially if you got some added extension. And at the very least, you guys, if you're watching this, you're just further watching me stress test this and beat the crap out of my Total Gym Fit, which again is still going strong and handling everything I'm dishing out at it. Which, as I'm watching this video, this is probably a good reminder to you and me to occasionally check your machine, make sure the bolts are tightened, make sure the cables and the rollers are in good shape, because Total Gym is a machine and the machines can kind of wear out. So be mindful about that if you guys want to stay safe on using this equipment. But that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, leaving a comment down below on your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Please consider checking out that YouTube join button if you guys want to further help me out in the channel. Check out SlidingBenchTrainer.com. Got some new stuff hopefully coming out in the near future, but I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.